Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me on this fresh episode of the Basement Surge. This is actually the season finale of season 5. That's right, the last episode of season 5. I'm excited, and I have a great guest on the show this week. I can't talk. He runs a show called The Morning Roast Radio Show. The Morning Roast Radio Show over on iHeartRadio, over on Kickin' Country. And I'm super excited to have him on the show this week and see how he does things, see how he works, what his workflow is, how he got started, get his background a little bit, you know, and try to see how he does what he does. So we'll get into that. Also, on the show this week, I'm giving away something special. So stay tuned until later in the episode to find out what that is. But in the meantime, let's get the show started, shall we? Hit that intro.
Let's go. Turn up the volume. From the basement of the Empire State. This is the Basement Surge.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to the Basement Surge, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me this week. Do me a favor, if you're watching over on YouTube or if you're listening on a podcast listening app, hit that subscribe button, give me a follow, give me a thumbs up, ring the bell, hit the plus button, hit whatever button you gotta hit to make sure you get notified of fresh episodes of the Basement Surge. All right, so I kind of teased to my special guest this week, and I'm super excited to bring him on. He is one half of the Morning Roast Radio Show over on Kickin' Country on iHeartRadio. Do me a favor in welcoming Aaron from the Morning Roast Radio Show.
This is the Morning Roast.
Let's make some radio, y'all.
With Aaron and Brittany on Power Country.
She's an Aries, and he's a Sagittarius.
He really doesn't know what that means, by the way.
But they're super awesome together. That's not what I mean.
You're listening to Aaron and Brittany on the all-new Power Country.
Right here on iHeartRadio.
Aaron, how you doing?
So much pressure now.
What do you mean? No pressure.
Listen, I get it. Don't tell the guy that he's the last episode of season 5, because then there is just an immense amount of pressure to make sure that there is a season 6. Because
that's right.
They could not be. This could be so bad. So I get it. Hey, I love it. And your production stuff, the audio engineer and me just got very excited on your intro.
I love it. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you taking out the time because I know you're a busy guy. You know, you got a bunch of things going on right now, and it's kind of what I want to get into this episode. You know, so we'll get into that. But how you doing? Good to see you.
I'm not bad. It's it is. I am a busy guy, but when I get to do things that are not normal, I still get excited. I still can't figure out I still don't know what we're doing. Like, I have no clue. So,
well, me and you, or
like me
you
in general,
and
I get the questions like you do. They're like, so what's your 5-year plan? I'm like, I don't know. What? I don't know what I'm doing next week. I have no clue.
Do you guys offer 401ks?
We don't quite yet. We're still working on some sort of employee compensation package. Try to bring some talent on, you know.
Nice. Very good. Man, I'm super excited to get you on. I discovered your show, I want to say like a week or two ago, right? And I've kind of like, I'm not sorry to say that I've kind of been stalking you on socials, you know, because yeah, I really love what you're doing. You know, I love the quality of the show you're putting out. And this morning I listened to your morning show over on iHeart, and it was funny because I was like, well, I heard this already. I listened. I did this, you know. So I'm like, now I get to see how it's all like put together, and so it was pretty awesome. But yeah, you guys are doing great over there.
Yeah, the move to iHeart was something that had been offered to us before, and it just wasn't something I was ready to do at the time, because the show up until a couple of months ago had been a solo show. I had done it for a long time as a solo. I'm not a fan of morning shows that are done as a solo. That doesn't mean that there aren't people that can do them, but for me, if I come in flat for whatever reason, a low energy or whatever,
Right.
I don't have any way of bringing energy in. We don't have a producer. We get people all the time that think I've got like a 10-man production team that's like helping us with this stuff. No. And so bringing my wife on, knowing that people enjoy being around us anyway, our friends, anybody that's around us, is like, oh, the banter, you know, I know you're married, like the banter in the car for us is really good. And I knew that if I could bring some of that to the show, we would be able to do it. And so Kicking Country came along with an opportunity, and I thought, well, this is something that I think we could do. And it's been a change. It's the first thing that I have done that's not live.
Right.
I've done live radio in some form or another for the last 4 or 5 years. So it was the first time voice tracking. So that's why, although people in traditional radio wish I wouldn't, that is why we go live on TikTok as we record our show, because it gives me a live element, brings some of that live energy. And we kind of enjoy giving a peek behind the curtain.
Right.
I don't think that everyone needs to think that Aaron and Brittany are up at 4:30 a.m. Central to be on at 5 a.m. Central to sit in the studio for 4 hours. I think people are okay knowing that is not happening.
You mean you guys aren't getting up at 3 a.m. having coffee?
Dude, I did morning radio for a long time, really early. It is the most hit or miss thing that you can do, because if there's anything that happens the night before, that 4 hours turns into 3, you still have to get up, and then
Right.
I still work a regular job, so you can't risk it. So doing it at night for us has been a godsend.
All right, so let's talk about that a little bit, because you and I, we're content creators, right? And, we put our heart and souls into the stuff that we make and produce and all that. How do you juggle, because I do the same thing, how do you juggle having a family and then working like a real 9 to 5 and then doing something, I guess, for fun, you know?
So when I first got into it, Brittany and I were not married, but we made a rule, which was that we could not do anything to upgrade content that radio could not pay for, whether that was being on a monetized platform, whether that was through sponsorships or whatever. And so what that did was kind of, for me, set the expectation that at the end of the day, my job is not to cut everything else out of my life to make sure this is the only thing that I focus on.
Right.
And I go through burnout like everybody else does. And I don't always juggle it very well. I think sometimes content creators only want to show you the best side of everything.
Right.
Because we don't want people to get discouraged, people that want to get into it. We don't want to show them the harder side of it, but I don't always balance it all very well. There are weeks where I feel like I'm in this room far longer than I need to be.
Right.
There are expansion opportunities that I have to say no to right now. There are projects that I start and then say, I just can't put another thing on my plate. And that's been probably the last 2 years, the lesson we've had to learn the hard way.
Wow. So when Kicking Country came along and you said yes, that automatically, I guess, put you on iHeart, right?
It did. It also, Brittany and I had some conversations initially where she said, listen, I have watched you spread yourself too thin, and I have watched you battle mental health issues because of it. I've watched you and your relationships with family suffer because of it. So if you're going to do this, if we are going to do this, some things are going to have to not happen or not happen right now until you can create some sort of workflow You can find people to partner with that you can, she calls it farm out,
Right.
some things to, and that's pretty tough when, you're not making a ton of money anyway. And then you think like, I gotta go to Fiverr and find somebody to do this when I could sit here and do it myself, and then realize, yeah, but if I spend 6 hours on a Saturday night putting together a stinger package for YouTube videos, that is 6 hours I could spend doing something constructive. And we've had to do that. So I would say the first 2 weeks that we did the morning show on iHeart was the roughest 2 weeks I've had in my content career.
Probably because you're getting used to the routines, right?
Yeah, I never voice tracked before. I had no idea how that would work. Just learning the software. I think the first 2 nights that we voice tracked, we started at probably 10 p.m. I don't think we were done one night till 2.
Wow.
And God bless her, because she just kept saying, I know that it's going to work. I know that it's going to get better. I just need you to figure out how to make it better quickly, or we will not be able to do this long term.
Right.
With a 45 to 50 hour a week job.
Right. See, and I think that's where I differ here with Surge, where my wife and I kind of had a similar conversation, and, because I started Surge right before the lockdown, before pandemic. And, so when the pandemic hit and I was locked in the house, I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to go like 1,000% into Surge and build it into what it is today, really. And my mentality after the lockdown was that, I'm still going to go down the basement into the studio and, do what I have to do. And I worked multiple jobs doing all different things, and it's hard to juggle. It really is, because, you'd bust your ass every day going to work, and then you'd come home and you have to do this show, and it's hard. It's hard. And especially if you're doing it with a partner like you are, there's a lot of understanding and a lot of compromise that has to come with that. So, but you guys are doing an amazing job. You guys, like your show on TikTok, like I love the fact that you show a little bit of the behind the scenes, and how you make the show. I'm a big fan of behind the scenes content. If you've seen any of my content, you'd know that.
Yep.
But like I'm trying to get to that 1,000 on TikTok. So if you're not following the Basement Surge on TikTok, do me a favor, head on over there. Do it now.
Right now.
I need to get to 1,000 because I really want to do live shows. All right. Because like I watch you and I'm like, oh man, that's so awesome. And it's great. But you guys, like you interact with your audience too. Like it's so big. I think it's so important too. Because you're live on TikTok and you're doing a radio show, but you're involving the audience over on TikTok on the show. And, like you're giving away sticker packs and all this stuff, and like, it's just, you're doing a great job, and it's no wonder, you got picked up by Kicking Country and you're on freaking iHeart, man. It's awesome.
Well, and it was, when we first got on TikTok, I started the Morning Roast Radio Show in early 2017. Actually, no, early 2018. We went about a year where I was kind of doing just like a music review podcast on an app called Stationhead.
Right.
And then a guy who had done morning radio that was on the app was like, hey, let's start doing a morning show. And we were doing it like 3 days a week or whatever. And so it was done through a phone app.
Yeah.
And so we had kind of, as we were doing it, learned without knowing it how to get studio quality audio into a phone. Now, I did not know that not everyone knew how to do this. I was living on an app, and then I had like Instagram, and that's it. So I was like, I wasn't on YouTube. I didn't have any like connection to other content creators. So when we got on TikTok, because I already had a smaller studio build out, and then I had an iRig Stream, which during lockdown became like this thing that everyone was trying to find, and it would give you a left and right audio input into a little thing. In fact, I've got one here because Brittany uses it for hers. This little device here was the most #1 coveted device by live streamers during pandemic.
Wow.
Because it would let you get your audio mains out of a board into a phone, and there's a cable that goes right in with a lightning connector. We already had that. So I didn't know when we got on TikTok, we hit 1,000 followers pretty quick. Then I was doing this show and people were coming in and losing their minds. I mean, I was legitimately having DJs with hundreds and hundreds of thousands of followers that were like, how are you getting your audio into the phone? So, right. And this is before TikTok pushed live streams based on GIFs, and like the algorithm is a lot different, but we would pull 900 to 1,200 people concurrent every morning.
Wow.
Doing exactly what I was doing on the Station Head app for an hour. I would get on an hour earlier there. Then I would try to pull everybody over to Station Head, and I'd do 2 hours on that app. I just did it the way I'd always done it. We had on Station Head a chat feature, so I was used to real-time feedback on how segments and features were working. Mm-hmm. And so when we added TikTok, at first it was like just this new thing. Now everybody and their mother knows how to get good audio into a phone, and every radio station, broadcast live on TikTok. But back then there was one guy in the UK named Chris Lane that had the capability of doing it. There was us, and I think one other place. And so that's how we grew really fast. I used to get embarrassed about the amount of followers I had on TikTok compared to the amount of content I had.
Right.
Because I'd get off of a live and I'd have 200 new followers in one live stream.
Right.
And so, and then, things kind of change a little bit. You evolve a little bit, and you make the best of, the opportunities that you're given. But it did teach me that, if you have all your eggs in one basket, that can change overnight. Because once TikTok added the monetization gift feature, the live stream algorithm changed overnight. We went from being able to pull 1,200 concurrent to a couple hundred concurrent. Mm-hmm. And I was like, now what do we do? So when iHeart came along, it was a natural adjustment for us to say, here's a chance for us to take what we were doing and again move the bar up and then blaze another trail. I do not have any traditional radio background. I've never done radio.
Come on.
Ever. Never. I never have done it.
Wow.
I have some friends that had. I got a little bit of some help from some radio personalities in the UK and Australia, where radio was still the biggest medium for people consuming music. Over there, every radio station has 4K cameras that broadcast behind the scenes. Like right. It's baked into their culture. I had a little bit of help there. And then the rest of it was I just listened to as much radio as I could listen to from outside of the U.S. because I knew radio in the U.S. had changed and it wasn't necessarily working. So I figured if it's still part of pop culture in the UK and it's still part of pop culture in Australia, what is it they're doing over there?
Right.
That would work here. And that's where we came up with the high energy, big intros, big imaging, like these huge sounds. I stole all that from Europe.
Dude, wow. You and I are basically the same, okay? Because when I first started podcasting, okay, I never listened to podcasts. Like, ever.
Wow. Okay.
Ever. Okay. One day, like in February of 2020 or 2019, something like that, I decided I'm looking for a new hobby, and I'm like, hey, let's just start a podcast. Not knowing anything about it. I didn't have any audio background, and nothing. So I go to my buddy Frank, and I'm like, hey, let's do a show together, and he's like, oh, okay. And we just did it. I did so much research. I watched all these YouTube videos and learned the best microphones and all the equipment I needed to buy. And, and it was like, I want to say a good month and a half, before I actually recorded my first episode. But, it's like I did all the work, into learning how to do this medium and how to bring the show about, so it's like you and I are so similar in so many ways.
Well, and the number one question I get, because people, and Brittany always tells this story and people think she's kidding, but she'll tell people he started on a card table in his living room with an Apple headset. That is 100% a true story. The first,
That's amazing.
6 months of shows was through the Station Head app. We literally, I got a card table that they were throwing away at my dad's church. I had just come out of a divorce. I had almost no furniture.
Right.
So it was real easy to find space for a card table in my living room. It was kind of in the corner. I had a piece of junk old computer that I knew I needed to be able to like look at stuff. I just knew I'm going to need to like have a research tool here.
Sure.
Then a little tiny holder that I got from Dollar Tree that the phone sat in with an Apple headset. That's all I had. And I tell people all the time, because I get questions and anybody that's a content creator, this is the number one thing that I cannot get across to people that want to do podcasting. They want to do any sort of live streaming. You look at like what the setup I've got now, you look at what you guys have there, and people think that's where they got to start.
Right.
They've got to start with all this. And I've heard it. Well, when I get the microphone I need, when I get the board I need,
Right.
then I'll do, and I have seen it where they have dumped all kinds of money into their setup and the show is terrible. It's not good.
Right.
For me, I didn't have any way to create cool stuff. I didn't have, buttons that I could hit that would play, sound effects. I didn't have anything to make the show engaging other than my voice, and Station Head had integration with Apple Music and Spotify. So the only thing I could do is intro a track, hit play on the app, and then unmute the microphone after the song was over. That's it. There was
Mute
nothing,
and unmute. Yeah.
That's all I had. Mute mic, unmute. Like, that's all I had. So I had to learn really early that it's about the content and
Yes.
it's about creating an engaging show. And that is where, especially when I'm working with other guys that are getting into radio or want to do podcasting, and what equipment do you use? I'm like, let me explain something to you. The equipment I use has nothing to do with why the show's engaging.
Right.
It doesn't have anything to do with it.
Yeah.
It has everything to do with the way the show is run and the content that there is.
Yes.
And if you can do that, then when you add in the cool sound effects and you add in all the production tools that I now have, they become a tool that you use, not the thing that you lean on to make the show work.
Absolutely. You're 100% correct. When we started Surge, I basically bought like a $20 boom arm from Amazon, and we had the crappy mics, but of course now I'm using all the upgraded stuff. I have a Rodecaster Pro and the SM7B, and it's just, but it's accumulated over time, and,
Yeah.
and we started like here down in the studio. It looked a lot different back then, but, I had a kitchen table down here, and that's what we recorded on. I attached the boom arms to the kitchen table, and we just recorded. And that was it. And on a crappy laptop that connected via USB to the microphones, and like it wasn't even XLR, it wasn't even like, high definition or anything like that. It's not I'm totally embarrassed of my first couple of episodes.
Well, good news. I didn't get into video till
Yeah.
a few years after I'd done it. And Station Head did not add a record feature to the shows till I'd been on there like 2 years. And even then, some of those early years, I'm pretty embarrassed that those live somewhere on some server somewhere.
Yes. Yeah. And it's funny because I've started taking down the first bunch of episodes, the first like couple seasons of Surge from the platforms, and I still find platforms that have them. And I'm like, why? Take them down. Stop. Like, no.
And here's what I'm so bad about, because I've got ADD so bad. So you and I are very similar. My wife calls it going dark, which is where I will research a topic until I literally know everything there is to know about it.
I think we just became best friends.
Let's play a game, all right? On the count of 3, name your favorite dinosaur. Don't even think about it. Just name it. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Velociraptor.
Favorite non-pornographic magazine to masturbate to?
Good Housekeeping.
If you were a chick, who's the one guy you would sleep with?
John Stamos.
What? Did we just become best friends?
Yup.
Do you want to go do karate in the garage?
Yup.
It's the best and worst skill that you can have. But like there were points where like somebody would give me some advice like you really ought to be posting your clips on Pinterest. And I'm
Yes.
like, Pinterest. So somewhere on Pinterest is like 4-year-old YouTube clips and I don't even know if I can access. I have no idea why always everything should be on Vimeo. You ought to and if you're not careful, you can get to where you're putting stuff on so many platforms.
Oh yeah.
And you're not really getting any return on it. You know, you've got to be consistent, and I'm not as consistent as I should be.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes I'll tell people it's not a bad idea sometimes to take a break from a platform and go,
Sure.
Okay, I can't be up on Sunday night till 1:00 in the morning trying to finish a clip reel when I've got to record a show and I've got to be on TikTok at 7.
Right. Yeah, you got to
I
prioritize.
got people counting on me to be there at 7 a.m.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you know, I kind of did the same thing. You know, when I first started, I was everywhere. You know, I called it the shotgun effect. You know, and I was on every single platform, and I tried to maintain and create new content for every single platform, and then I burned out. You know, and I wound up taking, I want to say like 6 months off of Surge. You know, I took off for 6 months, and I regrouped. And you know, when I came back, I was just laser focused. You know, I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna do this, and this, and that's it. You know, and it's working out. You know, so I think, you know, a lot of people, when they ask me, well, what social media platform should I be on? You know, I tell them, well, figure out what's best for you. You know, like, you know, if you do a lot of video content, then you have to be on YouTube, Instagram, do Reels, you know, do Shorts on YouTube, do TikToks, you know, and but if you're like, you know, you don't do a lot of visuals, then maybe Twitter is best for you, or, you know, just, you got to figure it out. But, you know, it all depends on your content. It all depends on your show. And, you know, it's only something that you're going to figure out as you do it, you know? So kind of like,
and I think guys like Gary Vee, who I love, I do love Gary Vee.
I read both of I read 2 of his books, and
they're so good.
Yeah.
But I have had people that are like, you know, he says you need 100 pieces of content today. And I'm like,
he has a team.
Know that he has 5 people that follow him around with phones all day long?
Yeah.
He's got people who film and record everything he does throughout his workday. He's not posting diddly poop. He's not doing any of that. So when he says 100 pieces of content a day, and when he says that, I think they think 100 TikTok videos or 100 Instagram reels or 100 YouTube shorts. To me, content can be a tweet as much as it can be, you know, a reel for Instagram. And some people, I've seen it where they're like, yeah, I'm doing 60 pieces of content today. And I'm like, do you have a real job? Yes.
Right.
Oh man. Like, you know,
a lot of work.
And that doesn't mean, because there are a lot of tools now that there weren't when I got into this. There are services that will clip your show up for you. You know, you can CapCut Mobile is a easy tool that makes it a lot easier to do stuff on the go. But at the end of the day, you know, for me, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok have worked the best. They're the easiest thing for me to put clips out. It doesn't mean I don't like Twitter. It doesn't mean that I, you know, wouldn't do Snapchat. It's just, for me, it become, if it's not something that I think of the second I finish a piece of content, oh, I got to get then it's not one that we will do.
Right. And you know, it's all about repurposing content too. You know, it's like you take the same clip and post it all over on the different platforms. You know, you're not making a separate clip for TikTok. You're not making a separate clip for YouTube. You know, it's literally the same thing that you're just posting on the same platforms, on the different platforms. You know, so That's what I do, at least. Like I don't make different videos, for different platforms. I make one video and I post it everywhere. That's it.
Yeah. And we design the show for the clips.
Right. Of course. I mean, you guys have great content that way. I mean, it's cool.
Yeah, like traditional radio, maybe I don't know how they do it. Again, I have no clue. I have a few friends in radio that are like, yeah, you kind of do it like we do it, but like not the same. But every feature, every segment we do is built for, can I clip this up into a 30, 60, 90 second clip?
Yeah. It's got to be
for
interesting.
every single thing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's got to be eye-catching.
And they're not all interesting, just so everybody knows. I have had to look at Brittany and go, that feature, that segment dies here. We've never do that one again.
Yeah.
That did not work.
I love the Yo Mama jokes. Those are hilarious.
That was all her, by the way. That happened in real time on TikTok. I was doing dad jokes. I don't know if she actually hates them or if it's a bit for her to be the wife who hates the dad jokes. I'm afraid to ask, to be honest.
Don't mess with it.
I don't want to know. If you hate them, don't tell me. It works on air. But I just got done doing dad jokes. She said we should do Yo Mama jokes.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about the way that we can live stream the show when we're recording it is something happens in studio that second. Mm-hmm. I can just take it straight to the show. And she's learned that I'll just go, and then we record it because I don't want to lose the interaction. But we start throwing Your Mama jokes back and forth, and it was the funniest thing in the world.
So, like I said, I've kind of been stalking you on socials, and I've been watching a lot of your TikTok lives. And a couple of times you've held up your prep, your paper that you do all your prep on, and I see the novel that you write. Do you tell me a little bit about your prep? Are you like Batman? Are you like doing too much prep?
Yeah. Okay. So, yes, the answer is yes. So when I prep a show, first of all, Mondays will always suck compared to what I think Monday should do because I've spent all Saturday and usually all day Friday because we don't record.
Right.
I've spent all day Friday, all day Saturday going, oh, we're going to start Monday off. This is going to be the best Monday we've ever had. Well, I set the expectation so high that I get off every time and I look like someone shot my dog. It's never good. So I usually over prep on Mondays, but we do have some prep services that we use. We do use some local news and stuff. And I've done it every way that you can do it. I've done only digital where everything is up on a screen. I've done where we prep every single segment. And when I started, that was the way I started.
Yeah.
Every segment on the radio clock was prepped in order. And so the prep looked like, Monday, segment 1, 2, 3, 4, hour 1, segment 1, 2, 3, 4, hour 2, segment 1, 2, 3, 4. I still do some of that. I do a lot more of it in my head now because I've been doing it for so long that it keeps me loose to kind of play with it. But our thing is if I'm doing an hour, there's got to be 4 segments per hour. And I think of it in 20-minute blocks.
Okay.
And that's kind of the way that I do it. So the top of an hour or the top of a segment, bottom of a segment, top of segment, bottom of segment. Mm-hmm. And then for us, we create core segments that all I've got to do is go find content for. So news is too stupid to make up, feel good story of the day, stories you might have missed, Morning Roast Radio Show Sports Blend, which I will give you an exclusive. I've been doing the Morning Roast Radio Show Sports Blend as a segment because we're going to spin it off into its own podcast eventually.
Nice.
Where we would have we call them MRRS Productions.
Right.
It would be a sports podcast that is done the way the Morning Roast Radio Show does sports, which means I only cover the sports I like, and we don't cover drama. So we do it a little bit different. But we try to find core segments that we know will work to make the prep easier, because some days I'm not getting home from work till 9:30, almost 10 o'clock. And then we've still got to record.
Sure.
So it can be rough.
So when you talk about the clock and the segments and all that, do you mean something like, this?
Yeah. So this would be a traditional radio clock.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to have all of your hours. It's going to be broken up into, some of the core segments, some of the things that you need to do. Now, for us, when we switched over to iHeart, there were some things I had to get used to. One of those was ads. I did not have ads, not like recorded ads. So that was very different, that there were going to be things in the show that I could not change. Their location, how much time is in them. We're paying station bills is what I always tell people.
Right. Yeah. I hear that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm honest with people. You've heard me. Like, I'm on, like, listen, we got to pay we got to pay some station bills.
Right.
And I feel like people respond more to the honesty on it. And for, your radio clock, if you think of it in those blocks, then you're really just prepping the block. You're not necessarily having to look at it like you're writing a novel. ChatGPT becomes a very useful tool to you, in that you can help it give context to something that you have. And then for anybody doing podcasting or radio, and I've talked to guys that do radio on a big scale, the best content is the stuff that's happening to me during the day.
Mm-hmm.
And the notes section of my iPhone is just it's like, just makes no sense to anybody but me. But we're looking at things that are funny. We're looking at like real interactions, arguments in the car that we've had over the dumbest things in the world.
You tell Brittany, I have to remember that for the show. I got to remember.
Oh,
that.
all the time. Like, we're totally doing that on the show tomorrow. Totally doing that on the show tomorrow. And then it's all about the buildup. It's all about teasing it. Like, you could take a story that is pretty mundane, and you can tell it. So, for instance, we'll do a little workshop here. So, Brahms is an ice cream and burger place here started in Oklahoma. It's expanded a little bit, but they're very well known for their ice cream, and their burgers are pretty good.
Okay.
And I'm at a Brahms one day. Guy comes in, orders what they call a bag of burgers, which for people in Oklahoma, it's real easy. It's 5 junior cheeseburgers.
Okay.
And it's like, 5 for $5.95. It's like one of those deals, which, I've eaten a bag of burgers, not proud of it, but I've eaten a bag of them.
Right.
So that is not out of the ordinary. I've got my AirPods in. I'm watching a YouTube video as I eat. And then I see the guy go over to, they have a little like marketplace inside of every Brahms where you can get like some groceries and you can buy their ice cream by the quart.
Mm-hmm.
He goes over there and buys a quart of German chocolate ice cream. Then he goes over to where he gets the straws and he gets 1 spoon. He takes it to the table, sets that down with the 1 plastic spoon. Then he goes and gets his burgers.
Wow.
And now the radio brain kicks in for me. And I'm like, I'm not leaving this Brahms until I see the conclusion of this.
Right.
So now that story is funny. Where it becomes funnier is like teasing it like you would any TikTok or YouTube video. You're listening to Kickin' Country 101. I have been teasing this Brahms story for 3 days. I am telling you something happened to me at Brahms Ice Cream and Dairy Store here in Oklahoma City that you will never believe. Coming back in 6 minutes.
Right.
I am setting the expectation high on purpose. Mm-hmm. And so, you tell that story, but the part of it where is you've got to be colorful and add the context is if I just said a guy, that's great. But the guy could be 300-pound bodybuilder that is like an afternoon snack for. And I'm like, no, this guy weighed 190 pounds. He's about 6'1". You give it color, you give it context. That's the stuff.
Yeah.
And then you also, for us, you've heard me do it. I get to say, hey, go to Morning Rush Radio on Facebook. What's the funniest thing you've ever had happen at a fast food restaurant? This is mine. I want to know what yours is. Now your podcasting brain goes to, you're creating content that you're going to use like next week.
Right.
I'm going to let that sit in our Facebook feed and I'm going to collect stories
mm-hmm.
and I'm going to give those out on air. I'm going to tell who the listener was that left the story. Now I've got if it works right, that turns into a bit on its own.
Right. Yeah.
You create a name for it, a snappy name for it. Crazy things and in the drive-through, fast food fiascos. Like, you start to create now a core segment, and people want to be a part of that core segment. They want to they want to help you prep the show, which for me is a necessity, because I don't have the schedule to be able to sit here and do it myself. I can't hire a producer. So I got to enlist the listeners in prepping the show. And that's kind of, for us, the best stuff is when we can make all of those things happen. And now we're turning down content. I'm sifting through Discord going, I can't use all this stuff, but it's all hilarious.
Wow. So you're basically a one-man show. Like, you do your editing, you do your video editing, you clip your content, and you do everything.
We have a really good group of we call them producers, because I really think they are, even though I don't really know what that term means for traditional radio. I don't know what like the job description looks like, but we've got a few people in our TikTok community and our moderators who really are invested in this project. They want to see this work. And they will do everything from moderate the live streams to send me content. We've got a wonderful moderator, Miss Holly,
yes,
who reaches out to country artists, and that girl could keep me. I could do 3 independent country artist interviews a week if I had the schedule for it. She's just unbelievable about connecting with people. So we've gotten very fortunate in that. And then my wife has the operational brain that I do not have. She can look at something and figure out a way to streamline it to where it becomes something that becomes easier to manage.
Okay.
Whereas I am the abstract in the clouds guy that's like, this is a great idea. We should do this. Should we just start it now? We'll just do it a little. And then she's the one that's like, now hold on here, Haas, because when are you going to do this? Okay. And so she'll usually play devil's advocate. And if I'm really sticking to that, this is something I want to do.
Yeah.
Then Brittany is the brains to be able to figure it out. And most people know she came up with the name of the show years ago. The name of the show was her idea.
Right.
The original format for the music was classic music from the 70s and 80s. She got me to listen to popular music for the first time ever. So before we got in formatted to country, we were top 40 pop and EDM.
Really?
Oh, it was some of that stuff. And we will go back to doing some of that at some point, because it was people watching me. I am not the EDM. There's nothing about me that's like, yep, that guy, top 40 pop, looks like it for sure.
You like some Taylor Swift? Yeah.
Yeah, I got really Andy Grammer became this huge, and so we dabbled in K-pop for a little while when K-pop got hot. She's just very much got a very big skill at keeping her pulse on the things that are going to work. And when we switched to country, brother, I had not listened to country music really in my entire life.
Get out of here. Wow.
Had not. She grew up listening to country music, but it was a little bit more George Strait, older country, 90s country.
Yeah.
The only country I knew was anything that played on TRL on MTV, which there were very few that made the jump.
Sure.
In the late 90s, early 2000s. Shania Twain could make the jump. The Dixie Chicks could make the jump, but there were not. I didn't know who hardly anybody was. And when we started to do country, I think that's been a big blessing for us, is people getting to watch me discover the genre along with them. And that's opened us up to try that and other things. We just got into NASCAR recently because it fits our fan base. Our demographic is NASCAR fans, and I don't know anything about NASCAR.
Mm-hmm.
So people watching us pick a driver and, watching me buy my first NASCAR t-shirt, making people a part of the journey as we go, instead of I do not enjoy the phrase act as if, because I think you cheat people from getting to watch the journey and learn along with you when you just act as if, if I just gotten on, all of a sudden I'm wearing a Denny Hamlin t-shirt with a Busch Light hat and, change out a bunch of these pictures to John Wayne, and I got Yellowstone movie posters. It'd have been disingenuous, and people would.
Sure. They'd pick up on that.
Not got.
Yeah.
But I've had people that are like, are you going to switch out anything in the studio? And I'm like, I bought a John Wayne book. So no, the answer is no.
You know, I think your studio is pretty well decorated there, though. I see a lot of He-Man, a lot of Thundercats, a lot of 80s stuff, nostalgic stuff. I love it. Comic books, I'm into it. You know, I kept Castle Grayskull on the table there behind me.
Oh, I've been eyeing it since we got on. I'm like, yeah, one day. No, cartoons were a big deal to me. I was a decent athlete in high school who was scared to tell everybody that I still watched cartoons. I enjoyed comic books.
Yeah.
My dad is a kid of the 70s and still watches cartoons to this day. We watched Super Friends together as a kid.
Nice.
I got really into Thundercats on the rerun side on Cartoon Network.
I want to show you something. Hang on.
Don't make me jealous.
So it's broken because of my kids, of course. But look at us.
Oh, look at that. With the Eye of Thundera right there on it.
Yep. It's a huge freaking broadsword.
And see, to me, they just don't do cartoons the way that they used to do them. Cartoons for me, the peak was Thundercats, X-Men, the animated series. I think the last great cartoon for me was probably, oddly enough, I think Gargoyles, that Disney did Gargoyles. I think it was a cartoon that did not belong on Disney. It was way too adult.
Yeah.
Watching it back now. But Batman, the animated series, I think was the peak, the last like great cartoon that somebody had done.
The animated series? Yes, absolutely.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, so good. So good. Even Superman, the Superman
Yes.
animated series, that was great too. But I'm a huge fan of 80s cartoons. I'm trying to get my son into Voltron. So,
There's one.
Yeah.
I there are episodes of Voltron that I might know by heart. Listen, bro, I was so embarrassed. I couldn't have friends to my house because I was afraid people were going to find out that I got home from school and I watched Dexter's Lab, Ed, Ed and Eddie, Thundercat. I watched this whole run on Cartoon Network.
Yeah.
Oh, so good. And when we built the studio, I had a little bit of nerd stuff at our old house. And we built the studio and I really wasn't sure what I was going to do. I thought, maybe we get some morning roast. Sometimes I'm an idiot. I'm like, maybe we do the traditional radio thing and we just get a backdrop that has all the logos on it. Maybe that's the thing to do. And God bless Brittany again. She's like, why don't you just make it you?
Yes. Absolutely.
Just make it you.
Absolutely.
And we've bought a lot of stuff at Comic-Cons. She got me some original art from He-Man that's on over that shoulder.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been unbelievable.
That's so awesome, dude. Are you originally from Oklahoma?
So I was born in the Panhandle of Texas, where dust bowls are a real thing, and tumbleweeds actually do blow into your front yard. And then most of my family ties are right around the Chicago area, Peoria, Illinois.
Okay.
So that's where the people have a hard time pinpointing my accent. My mom's from Oklahoma originally. My dad is not. He's born in Michigan, and then they moved to the Chicago, Peoria area. So I grew up in a house with a guy that says "ir" for car,
right,
and then a mom with a little bit of an Oklahoma accent. So all my sports teams are Chicago.
So that's where I was leading to. I was like, well, how do you become a Cubs fan?
So that's a weird story. So my dad is a Cardinals fan.
Yeah.
Because Peoria is the home of one of the minor league teams for the Cardinals. And,
okay.
Peoria is closer to St. Louis than it is really Chicago as far as culturally.
Mm-hmm.
But my granddad, who growing up, my granddad passed away a few years ago. World War II Marine vet.
Wow.
He had he loved the Cubs, and I really don't know that I picked up on it as a kid. I just knew that there were only a couple of things that he would watch with me on TV when my brothers and I would go over there. One of them was Westerns, specifically John Wayne, Jimmy Stewart, and Gunsmoke. Like those were the things that he would watch. You know, he would always tell people John Wayne was the 13th disciple, and that was his saying. And then Arkansas Razorback football and basketball, and so I originally grew up a Hog fan. And then Cubs baseball. And he passed away a year before the Cubs won the World Series in 2016. So he never was in his mid-90s, never saw a World Series win as a Cubs fan his entire life. And I don't want to get emotional, but that night when the Cubs won, I had really reconnected with him about the baseball side of it a year before he had passed away. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it was this thing that I began to see why baseball is called the most romantic sport. I enjoy the history of sports, and baseball has such a deep, rich history.
Yes.
And so when he passed away, it was kind of just this thing that let me kind of hold on to some great memories. And that just happened to coincide with the best Cubs team ever assembled, and all these young stars who weren't much older or weren't much younger than me,
right? Who
are, you know, winning. And so that that became a thing. And then my dad was a Bears fan and a Bulls fan. And I grew up in the 90s, so everybody was, people were like, oh, I was a Bulls fan. I was like, no, you really weren't. You were a Michael Jordan fan, and I get it. It's fine.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm from New York and I watch the Bulls, you know, so.
Yeah, like you had to. People that don't get it. And I tell people all the time, especially for basketball and baseball, growing up, you would run into people who were Bulls fans, Braves fans, because of TBS, the Superstation carried all the Braves games. WGN carried all the Cubs and Bulls games. So guys our age, we only had like, if you had to be a really big fan of somebody like the Colorado Rockies, because you weren't ever going to be able to watch them on TV. There's no way. So you would just pick the team that you could see on TV. And for most people, that happened to be the Chicago Bulls. Played on every game was broadcast on TNT.
But yes, I do agree that there's something sentimental about baseball because, you know, for me, I'm a Dodger fan, right? And they're in Los Angeles, but I'm all the way in Brooklyn, New York. But for me, it's in my family to like them from when they were in the Brooklyn and when they were Brooklyn Dodgers. So, you know, it's kind of reminiscent for me, and you know, it brings me back to good memories, you know, of baseball when I was a kid with my family. So, that's one of the main reasons why I like the Dodgers. As far as football goes, I don't know what your problem with Aaron Rodgers is. Like,
listen, it's he's for those of you that don't watch the show, he's playing on a bit that we just did. Here's the deal. I didn't hate Brett Favre. You couldn't hate Brett Favre. Like everybody in America liked Brett.
Right.
Bears fans liked Brett Favre.
Yeah.
He was like this cowboy figure and this gunslinger guy. Aaron Rodgers came along, and to Bears fans, he acted very entitled and like, you know, it's very similar maybe to, you know, the Bears and the Packers are two of the oldest teams in the NFL. They're two of the original teams. You know, George Halas, who started the Bears, was at the first meeting when they decided to establish, you know, the NFL.
Right.
And so Bears fans have had so much heartache since 1985, the year I was born. And then that guy would just exacerbate it by being like, who's your daddy? And so I was excited that he went to New York to the Jets. I got real excited. Yeah. And then I watched the first 2 episodes of Hard Knocks. And now I hate him a little less. And it's legitimately thrown me off. I don't know what to do. I told my mom, I was like, I don't hate him as badly as I hated him a year ago. And now I'm afraid, like, I put it on TikTok and Bears fans are like, you have to still hate him. I'm like, no, I just hate him a little less.
Just a little less.
I still hope Yeah, I still hope he trips over a parking block and like breaks a foot. But like I'd like help him up.
Yeah.
Whereas before I'd be like, see, that's what you get.
Oh man. Here's I think the last question of the episode. How many hats do you have?
Oh man. Here's a question I hate answering. So
because you wear a different hat like literally every time I see you.
So I've counted. I could go 2 months without ever I could go 6 months without ever having to repeat a hat.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So we're on TikTok 4 days a week. I could go 6 months without ever having to repeat a hat.
Damn.
I was always into hats, and then I went to work for Lids.
Oh, okay.
Running their college brand here in Oklahoma, and that just exacerbated it even worse. And I've changed styles a little bit here and there, but I'm losing my hair is a big part of it. Which my wife says is due to the hats, which is probably true.
My wife says the same thing.
Like she's like, if you would do your hair more, I was like, I don't think that's going to help because I think it's too far gone at this point. But it just kind of turned into a calling card thing. And I get lucky enough that being a Chicago Bulls fans, the Bulls are a little bit like the Raiders in that when you go look at hats, you can find a Raiders or a Bulls hat in every color scheme that you can imagine because they're a part of pop culture.
Mm-hmm.
So I have the unique opportunity that I need a navy blue hat. Navy blue is not a Bulls color, but I can find a navy blue Bulls hat. Right. So then that starts you down this road of
gotta collect them all.
Solid red one.
Yeah.
Right. I need a purple one. And so then it's gotten out of control. We probably, when we moved, boxed up and gave away a couple of Rubbermaid containers full of hats that I no longer wear.
Wow. That's crazy.
It's bad.
All right, everybody. I teased in the beginning of this episode that I'm going to be doing a giveaway, and here it is. McDonald's $20 gift card. Who wants it? I'm giving it away. Who wants it? Do me a favor. Comment down below in the podcast listening app you're listening on, or on YouTube. Comment down below Surge, and you'll be in the running to get this $20 gift card to McDonald's, where you can buy fries, you can buy a Big Mac, you can buy a bunch of things, but you have to enter to win for 1 week only. It's just this week. So do me a favor, down in the comments, hit the word Surge down there, and you'll be in the running. Aaron, why don't you give me a little radio spot for this?
Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Surge Radio. We're giving away a McDonald's gift card right now. What you've got to do is comment down in the chat. I need Surge in the chat, taking home a McDonald's gift card. Let me tell you, times are tough. Money is tight. McDonald's, we're here for you.
That's right. That was beautiful. I couldn't have said it better myself. In fact, I didn't. Oh, man. Aaron, thank you very much for joining me this week.
Brother, this has been a pleasure. I've enjoyed talking shop with you, man. It means a lot that you asked me on. More than you know. Trust me.
All right. Everybody, do me a favor. Go follow this guy. He runs a show with his wife. The what's it called again? The
Morning Roast Radio Show.
I'm kidding. The Morning Roast Radio Show on Kicking Country on iHeartMedia, iHeartRadio. Go check it out. Go listen to it. Subscribe to him over on TikTok. He's on TikTok. He's on YouTube. He's on Instagram. Go check him out. He's putting out great content, a lot of behind the scenes, and he gives away a lot of crap. Like
we do.
Yeah. Like go watch his show. He gives it away, like sticker packs and stuff like that. So go check it out. And of course, you can follow Surge
Please do. In fact, please do.
Yes. So if you're listening over on a podcast listening app, or if you're watching over on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit a follow button, hit a plus button, give me a thumbs up, ring a bell. I don't care what you do, just hit a button to make sure you get notified of fresh episodes of Surge. And follow us over on TikTok, because I need to get 1,000 follows so I can compete with this guy.
Man, let's get this boy to 1,000 follows. The amount of content he can push out on a live stream, if we can get it there, will be unbelievable.
Yes.
Get him to 1,000 followers.
Well, all right. Thank you very much, Aaron, for coming on this week. Stick around for the green room after. Don't go anywhere.
Let's go. Turn up the volume. From the basement of the Empire State, this is the Basement Surge.
3, 2, 1.